Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay, happy new year and all that, and welcome to Don's Fold again. So I come here to do another shoe off. This time I'm going to do the Prime X versus the Takumi Sen 8, so yet another Adidas one. So this has been quite a contrasting one. I've got the massive stack of the Prime X, which is technically an illegal shoe for racing. Current UK athletics rules don't allow you to wear shoes more than the 40mm limit, same as the World Athletics rules. Whether anyone checks on that is another matter. But anyway, so not an obvious race shoe for me. I've got these on at the moment, the Prime X. Let's have a look. And here they are. Apologies about the Nike blue socks, but at least you can see where my toes come. Got just a bit of room in these, probably about half a thumb width, so not ideal. Wish there was a 13 or a 13.5, but we have to make do with a 12.5. So I'm going to try my normal circuit, which is about 2.2 miles. Let's see if we give this a bit of effort. So bizarrely, the best time I've ever done on this circuit is actually in the Tempo Next Percent, which is a shoe I hardly ever wore, so maybe it's better than I thought it was. But anyway, that was a topic for another day. Right, so I think I'll see if I can go around about sort of 6:30 pace, which I think is about what I need. So that's probably on this circuit, because it's a bit up and down, that's probably more like a sort of a 10k effort, and see how we go. And then I'll swap over to Takumi Sen, run the same one again, and there's a little sort of circuit around here in a loop for about 0.4 of a k, like a long sort of track, more of a rectangle I think. So I think I might do 2 laps in each of those at the end to see how they fare on a shorter loop with lots of turns. Now the Prime X ought to be terrible for that, because it's absolutely terrible for cornering. But on a straight line, if you get going, hope you should be okay. There's a few ups and downs on this one as well, so the extra weight of the Prime X could be a problem on the uphills and the downhills. I wonder if my toes are going to slam against the front. Anyway, so there's all factors to challenge you. And all right, let's get on with the Prime X then, and report back as we go along. So at the end of Rams Lane, just over halfway, they're so unstable, these Prime X. Any sort of camber or bump just go all over the place. But once you actually get into a rhythm, actually quite fast, doing about 6:30 pace. This is quite hard work. I could just about talk to the camera, not for too long. Right, see you at the end. Okay, Prime X done. That was quite a hard effort. So I just got under 14 minutes, 13:57 with a max heart rate there of 149, just checking my watch, with an average of 134. So I have to check the stats. I think that's up there with some of my fastest times, averaging under 6:30 pace. I'm having to switch back to miles pace from kilometres. I just did the Happy Squid Game first round, where you had to run 2Ks back to back without stopping within 3 seconds of each other, which I think I just did I did 2 point something seconds in them, so although I had the watch to help. Right, so we're now into the Takumi Sen 8, and yeah, I instantly kind of feel that they're so much more stable. There's, what's the stack at the back? 33 in these as against 50 in the Prime X. So I think in my size, it's probably more than 50. I think 50 is in the sort of the EU 42 size or something like that. And I'm an EU, well in Adidas it'd be in the EU 48.5, I think it is, something like that. UK 12.5. Right, so I did notice with the Prime X, as I sort of said, I was running around, that any sort of camber, and there was a few on that course, I had to sort of cross over the road to turn right, and it's sort of like, oh, the camber was like, oh, you just feel like you're on a sort of yo-yo going back and forward. But yeah, once you got in a straight line and you were actually cruising, they felt all right actually. Sort of better than I thought downhills. I think you take most of the strain of the downhills out, and the uphills were better than I thought as well, because although they're a lot heavier than these Takumi Sens by best part of 100 grams, I think they're about 330 compared to about 240 in these. I'll put the exact weights up there somewhere. Anyway, it's definitely lighter. So traditionally you kind of think the Takumi Sen is like the traditional racer, not much to it in modern day terms, very light, lower to the ground. But yeah, does it actually help? Because on a 5k, I'm not obviously a professional athlete. I'm not sort of taking 13 minutes. I'm taking 13 minutes and a bit to do 2 and a bit miles. So yeah, does that extra cushioning actually help? I think we'll discuss in the previous ones where it was basically a score draw between the Takumi Sen 8 and the Next Percent 2 and also the Adios Pro 2. That, yeah, they feel faster, but when you actually look at the reality of it, they aren't, because you just feel like you gain a bit more cushioning on the high stack one. So we'll see how we go in this one now. Okay, about a mile to go in the Takumi Sen 8. I'm quite a way up actually on this. I feel like I'm working as hard, but they do feel faster and lighter. Just feel more harsh, just much more low to the ground. Very stable though, not getting in this wobbliness on the cameras I did in the Prime X Right, let's go downhill. So I'll see you at the end. Okay, Takumi Sen 8 done. I hope I said it right this time. Wasn't doing very well before, was I? Anyway, that was a lot faster. 13:41 compared to, I think, 13:57. Heart rate was a bit higher. Maybe I just sort of felt like it was a Shoeoff today that I just felt I wanted to go. It's sort of not as hard as I could possibly go, but certainly like a hard effort, not try and equalise it, just let the shoes take their course. So I think the fact that I had, you know, already a 14-minute hard effort, then a few minutes rest, probably about 7 or 8 minutes, I think, normally by the time I take the shoes, talk to the camera, that sort of stuff. The guy even asked me what I was filming, although he didn't mention Jeremy Hunt, so I think he might have been something to do with the Hunt saboteurs or something, so I think he was a bit worried I was sort of filming clandestinely. I said, what are you filming? I said, well, myself, film myself running in different shoes. I think I thought it was mad. Maybe I thought he was just as mad. Anyway, just part of the course, isn't it? Ready? Right, so yeah, so now I'm going to do 2 laps of this little circuit. This is part of it here. Little sharp turn at the end, and see how we go in those. I mean, this is going to be a cornering exercise as much as anything else, and accelerating out the bends in the Takumi Sen 8 ought to be far easier, shouldn't it? So this one will be, I'll try and make this a bit faster than the 5k effort, but just to get around this before it gets dark. Anyway, so I think so far I'd say the Takumi Sen 8 is winning. Not necessarily that it's sort of by a country mile, but if you've got a race, then the fact that it does allow you to run faster than the Prime X, it's got to be a good start. I think I would have struggled to run that speed in the Prime X. Although interesting, I thought there was one point I was sort of further up than I ended up, so maybe I had a good finish in the Prime X. So I'll pull all the splits up later, analyse it a bit more detail, see what the heart rate was doing. Particularly interesting, the heart rate up the hills and stuff like that. But one thing I did notice about the Takumi Sen 8 again, that so much more sort of relatively harsh. I mean, harsh is a strange term these days, because in 2016 I wore the first version of the Adidas Boost, the one that's now at 6, in a full marathon, and ran all my other races like 10Ks, halves, park runs, anything like that. I think I even did a mile in central London in them in 4:56 back in the day. And yeah, so compared to them, they're probably quite sort of soft and plush, but compared to the modern day ones, they just feel quite harsh. So I think that's also another factor, that it's all right for these sort of 5k type efforts, but if you go for any longer, is that still going to weigh you down? Having said that, I've been out for a 9-mile run in the Takumi Sen 8 and then a 7-mile warm down after I did the Shoeoff with the Adidas Pro the other day. So that in itself shows that they're perfectly fine at a sort of steady pace, but just don't seem very well suited for that. Right, so I'm going to get into this little dash around the block twice. Reminds me of school days when we used to have, you know, I get up. My first runs were kind of around the block. I think I got up, no warm up, didn't know such a thing, ran flat out from the gun, go back to bed panting. And I think a few weeks later I thought, well, maybe I'll do 2 laps like that, and it's even more panting like a dog. So that was 1982. So that was probably my first sort of training runs that I recorded in my diary. So I think I had a Casio back then. Then if you saw my Forerunner 201 picture 18 years ago, almost the day, I think I got it about the 8th of January. It was new out then, so they must have actually built it in 2003, and you had to wait about a month before they even had something to download it. So all the earlier runs, and he just sort of noted the time, wasn't able to download it, and obviously didn't have Garmin Connect in those days. It was motion based, and that eventually became Garmin Connect later on. Right, let's go on with this 2-lap one and see how we go. Okay, can you see me at all? The Takumi Sen 8 done. That was a real test of cornering. It felt sort of quite difficult to corner even in them. So the Prime X is going to be interesting. I think just under a 6-minute pace for 3 minutes 12 seconds, and it felt like I was having to sort of sprint out the corners a bit. But even some of them I had to take it gingerly even in them. So this feels going to be interesting. Better get this done before it gets really dark. I can't see where I'm going. Right. If I beat the Takumi Sen time in the Prime X, I'll be amazed. But anyway, we shall see. Okay, had to use my head torch for that Prime X one. Well, unbelievably, I was actually 3:09 in that one, and compared to 3:12 in the Takumi Sen 8. So I can't really believe that I was actually faster in the Prime X, because every corner felt like it was so wobbly. But yeah, it just goes to show, doesn't it, with the shoes. That's the thing about this Septim with these low stack ones. You feel like you're going faster, but are you? Just sort of like, I noticed on the straights, there was a few sort of like straightaways, 100 meters on that circuit, where I felt like I was sort of bounding along nicely, but yeah, it felt like I was fighting the lactate. fighting the fact that was my fourth hard run, because all those runs were quite hard today, and yet I was faster in the Prime X, and you would never have thought that in a million years, would you? 100 grams heavier, the most wobbly shoe that I've got, and yet I was going through 90-degree bends faster than in the Takumi Sen 8. I have to check the heart rate to see what was in that, but yeah, I'm astonished by that. It just goes to show that these tests need to be done. I'm not sure that's a real world test, because I think if I'd have done the Takumi Sen 8, I'd have had that target, but I didn't look at my watch there. I just tried to run those two as hard as I could possibly muster. So yeah, maybe an element on the last one I had more rest, because the two longer runs take more out of you, and then you sort of get longer rest proportionately for it was about 0.54 of a mile I timed it at on the thing. It's a bit hard to say exactly because it's so many tight corners, the GPS might not work well, but the important thing is I stopped and started to watch in the exact same place, so that is the acid test. Anyway, so go and check out the data on this one, and I'll be back shortly with the spreadsheet. And now, okay, so here we are. Here's the spreadsheet. It's quite a busy one today, but quite a lot of things to talk about. So just a reminder of what we did. This loop here is 2.16. It's a bit up and down, so it starts off sort of flattish, and then it goes down, then up again. The up again there is Alford Hill. Then it's sort of fairly flat on this road called Rams Lane. Then it's a bit undulating. It goes flat, down quite steeply, then up again 7%, which is the steepest hill, Knighton's Hill. Then it's a short sprint back to the start end point right where the sun in. So I did the Prime X first, and I tried to take this quite hard because the previous best run I've done on this circuit was in the 10 next percent back in September 2020. That was the afternoon after I've done a 400 meters in 62 seconds, so maybe I was a bit tired. But interesting there that I was so much faster in the Prime X, 30 seconds faster, and the average heart rate was actually the same. Of course, pretty different fitnesses between 2020 and now. I was in the middle of a sort of track season and concentrating on 8s and 4s at the time, whereas at the moment I'm just sort of knocking out 70 miles a week. So aerobically, rather different. Although I did get my maximum higher in this one. And then I moved into the Takumi Sen 8, and the same circuit again, had a 9-minute rest. So pretty much a full recovery. I think my heart rate was sort of under 80 when I started. So looking back on it, perhaps I should have gone off a bit easier at the start, because actually on the first section here, I was actually 15 seconds up. And then as I carried on, there wasn't actually much in it. And in fact, interestingly, I worked out the speed for the second half of the circuit, and they were pretty much identical. But maybe as I'd gone off harder, and then I sort of went up Alford Hill, the first hill, quite hard. So I got my heart rate up there to, looks like about 145 probably on that hill, already a lot more than it was on the Prime X. So, but having said that, I did feel that the Takumi Sens were kind of allowing me to run faster and almost wanting me to run faster. So in a way there, I didn't like try to control it too much, just sort of let the legs go and see what happened. I think what was interesting though, that when I had done that harder start, then maybe there was an element that the shoes weren't then helping so much, that sort of lower stack, more harsh feeling, as I mentioned in the video. And then I do remember sort of like the second time up Knighton's Hill. In fact, I was actually slower in the Takumi Sen there than I was in the Prime X, and my heart rate was a lot higher by then. So I think I was probably sort of just past threshold in a way on the Takumi Sen. But anyway, the net result is I actually did that with 15 seconds quicker, but that entire 15 seconds was made up in the first half. And substantially higher heart rate to do so. And just as you might have kind of expected, the cadence was actually lower in the Prime X than the Takumi Sen by 3, although I was going slightly faster. At least I got my balance reasonably well today. So then I went into this little circuit around a little green by the pub. It has about 3 or 4 sort of sharp bends. It's just over 400 meters altogether, so just over half a mile. And I went off first in the Takumi Sen 8, as I said in the video, thinking that this was going to be a no contest, and I did that in just over 3:12, 5:55 pace. So I felt like I was working quite hard there, having to take those corners sort of reasonably gingerly. It was a bit of damp underfoot, but it just felt like I was getting through them pretty well. And I'd run that circuit quite a few times, so I kind of knew when I had to corner, as it were. I wasn't a lot of looking for the corners. And there's a few speed humps as well you need to be aware of. Also interesting there, the cadence there was quite higher, so you can see that I was definitely working harder. Maybe that is an element of sprinting out in the corners as well. And then I made some little segments on the 2 laps, and both were 1:26, so it was a very even pace. Then we moved into the Prime X thinking that it was terrible. And it did sort of kind of feel like it was slower. Maybe I just had some lactate in me. But as I said in the video, bizarrely, I was actually 2.5 seconds quicker.
And if you look at the lap splits here, I was actually quicker by 2 seconds on the first lap. And the second lap, I thought I was tying up, and I was still a second quicker. But the heart rate was pretty much identical, averaging 139, and the maximum was just 1 beat in it. And if you look at the two heart rates, average and max for the 2 laps, again, it's pretty much identical. 135 average for the first lap, 146, 147 on the second lap. So you kind of expect from heart rate drift that the second one would be a bit higher, but also the fact I was running slightly faster. So I think in that sense, the Takumi Sen kind of was a bit of a fail. I mean, maybe it's a test that maybe it's a bit of a quirk. Maybe I was just trying a bit harder subconsciously in the Prime X, but it just goes to show that a shoe you didn't think would work well at all worked fine, and a shoe that you think would be perfect for the task kind of like wasn't. So very interesting. So yeah, this is kind of interesting. If you also look here at the last shoe off I did in this circuit was just before Christmas. I did the sort of daily trader one. So what's interesting here is how much faster I was in the 2 racing inverted shoes than I was in the Invincible and even the Speed 2 Run Shield. Admittedly, the average heart rate was a bit lower, but not that much lower than in the Prime X, and the maximum's got up nearly as high. So over a minute faster, basically. So it just goes to show that these racing shoes do actually kind of work. And they kind of feel like I was much more wanting to go in the 2 ones on test today. But yeah, so what I take from this is that if you're hot off the blocks, then the Takumi Sen 8 is going well. And yes, I ran faster, but the fact I was actually then even pace on the second part of this lap, and I kind of felt like maybe I just sort of shot my bolt a bit, as it were. So is this really a shoe, the Takumi Sen 8, that is actually faster than the Prime X? Well, I'd probably say just, but if you look at this sort of circuit one at the end, we kind of think, well, there's no real advantage there, is there? I think it's a test I may need to repeat again. Somebody suggested I ought to just reverse the order, so maybe I'll just repeat this test and do the Takumi Sen 8 first, and then end up in the Takumi Sen 8, just to reverse it, just to see whether this was a statistical fluke or not. But anyway, I think it just goes to show that the Prime X is a racing shoe, as some say, even though it's not actually allowed to wear it as a racing shoe, and it did better than I thought. But I think the only caveat would be that it's so unstable. It's almost a bit disconcerting, especially on country lanes when you're having to run to the side of the road, and the camber's quite marked because obviously the runoff from the rain as well. They don't want to flood the road. So unless you can sort of literally run down the middle of the road, and some of the quieter lanes like Rams Lane and Knighton's Lane are very quiet lanes, you can do that. But the first bit is a bit more busy, so you have to sort of watch yourself there, run to the side. So that was definitely a bit disconcerting and definitely a factor. But yeah, the Prime X did pretty well, and compared to a shoe that is almost 100 grams lighter and designed as an out-and-out racer, then yeah, was there any real difference here at all? In some ways, you might think the Prime X had a sort of a slight advantage in some of these tests. Anyway, so I hope you found this interesting. Maybe yet another score draw in a way. I think after the first one, I think the Takumi Sen 8 had it, and then after that second one, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe not. Maybe I need to try a bit harder in the Prime X and really tell. So I did actually do a Shoeoff in Dunsfold, not on the same circuit, between the Prime X and the Adizero Pro 2. And I wore the Prime X second there, and I managed to match the time I did in the Adizero Pro 2, but a bit higher heart rate, as you'd expect. But I only had time to wear both shoes once in that one, so it wasn't a best of test. But it did actually show again that the Prime X is capable. It's just sort of so disconcerting that you feel like you're going all over the place. Anyway, have you got either of these shoes? Are you thinking of getting them? Does this make you more or less inclined to test them out? So I hope you found this interesting, and like and subscribe on that, and I look forward to seeing the next one then. Bye!